Hi guys, welcome along to the Barbecue Talk Show. My name is Matt.
And my name is Ryan. Pleasure to be here, and a great guest sitting in the green room even. I'll put my teeth back in a minute. We've been chatting all day.
Yeah.
As soon as the mic comes on, he's like...
Absolutely. You got some nerves going on, have you, Ryan?
Yeah, a little. Well, I wouldn't say nerves. Just a little bit of a jitter, but it's understandable. Arguably the biggest guy in barbecue to talk to about all things barbecue. What a guy! How lucky are we?
Very, very lucky indeed. A few things to mention before we get going. A couple of little bits. Offers that some of our partners are offering about at the moment. If you didn't catch the Black Friday deals in the over the weekend, Stag British Charcoal are doing a Christmas box and a mini Christmas box. They're working with partners Copper in the Clouds, so they'll be doing like a mixture of 6 kilo bag of apple charcoal, a box of flamers, and the miniature range from the distillery and tonic waters. That goes live on the 7th of December. So if you head over to Stag British Charcoal's website, check that out. And yeah, grab yourself or your loved ones some great little sort of bundle there. Don't forget, we've got discount codes on the website for Meter. Again, if you want to get your loved ones a Meter probe for Christmas, head over to the website, put in the details that you need for that, and grab yourself a discount code from there. And obviously, Russ from the Rusty Barbecue Co., he also has the a code on there as well, which is head over there, grab it. Lovely. Yeah, so that kind of covers everything we've got at the moment, I think. The podcast, where I know we've been lacking a little, and my esteemed colleague is taking the reins on the podcast very shortly. So the ones that we've missed will be up very shortly for your listening pleasure, and the ones going forward, Ryan will be doing as well.
What could possibly go wrong?
It'll be fine. It'll be fine. Right.
It'll be good.
Anything you want to do? Anything you want to shout?
I'd like to shout out to everybody in the chat. Apparently, we're Six Brothers Beef Company. They've just subbed to the channel. So thank you very much, guys. Much appreciated. Dutchie's in the chat. Pickles in the chat. Kent. Mr. Mags is in the chat, which is cool. Who else we got in there? Let's scroll up. Dude Kitchen and Grill.
What a lovely comment from Johnny. Thanks, mate.
Yeah. And obviously Kent as well. Right, so let's get this show rolling. We're probably going to have a competition for Uncle Steve's Shake in a little while. We've figured it out on the hoof. I should imagine it's going to be some sort of barbecue related question. So get ready for that.
So, won't we?
Yeah, being a barbecue.
Right.
Show. Let's roll on.
Should we get in the main event and say hello?
100%. Let's get it rolling.
Hi, man. How you doing?
I
saw you jamming along to our intro music.
Yeah, that's
in the green room.
What is that tune?
I don't know. I may possibly have paid for it on Fiverr.
That's pretty catchy, man. I was playing air guitar and
yeah, it's good fun, isn't it? Yeah, definitely. Got to have a catchy little theme tune for people to sort of, it's that remembering someone without physically going, oh, there's a logo, or that the music comes on, you go, oh, that's the Barbecue Talks theme. That's what we're aiming for. So.
Works for me.
That's what we're trying to do. Right, so first off, thank you for joining us, Meathead. It's an honour and a privilege to have you on. I know for a fact you're going to be a super duper interesting guy to talk to. You've probably forgotten more about barbecue than anyone can remember. So
I'm forgetting a lot of stuff lately. So combination of age and alcohol.
A hedonistic mix. Anyway, cheers. I'm on some ale tonight, so we'll see how that progresses. Right. first off, I said thanks for joining us. Tell us a little bit about yourself. What have you got going on? What up and coming projects have you got going? Any exciting news?
Oh dear. For anybody out there who doesn't know who I am, and I'm sure there are many, I run a barbecue-related website called AmazingRibs.com, and according to Google, it's the most popular barbecue website in the world. Covers everything from recipes to we have a lot of fun with science and myth busting, and because most of us learn barbecue from our dads, and he learned from his dad, and he learned from his dad, and a lot of mythology got handed down along the way, and we just, for the fun of it, set out to find out if they worked or not, if it was true or not. And we've discovered that an awful lot that we think to be true isn't. So I wrote a book on the subject. There it is, hovering over Ryan's shoulder, called Meathead: The Science of Great Barbecue and Grilling. And the first half of the book is pretty much a science book. It talks a lot about what is smoke, what is fire, what is energy, what is heat, meat science, and so on. This is 2020, God forbid. And, most of us have an interest in science and technology. We don't want cookbooks to tell us, do this, do this, do this, do this. Step 1, step 2, step 3. We want to know, why do I do step 1? Why do I do step 2? What happens if I skip step 3? So we've taken a lot of time to try and explain the whys and wherefores of cooking with fire and smoke, and the website does that. We also have a lot of product reviews. Now, I don't know how many products that are made in the U.S. find their way to your glorious shores, but we do a great deal of product reviews from grills and smoke. We've got a guy who works for us full-time testing grills and smokers. He works for me, and he's got a better job description than I do.
I want that job, bro.
Yeah, what a job, Okay, get up in the morning. Okay, let's go cook some stuff and kick the tires on this grill.
Absolutely.
And then we have a portion of the website that is membership, and it's a great community. It's where 16,000 plus members, 85% renewal rate. Where they really get, they get to be a community. They get to be brothers and sisters and trade recipes and a lot of fun stuff.
Oh, wow. It's a super, super cool website. There's, again, as you said,
thank you.
There's a lot of good recipes in there. Like, for instance, the rib one. What's the
last meal ribs.
Last meal ribs. That's it. Last meal
ribs was the first recipe on the website. There's a good story behind it. I actually was the wine critic for the Washington Post and the Chicago Tribune for many years. Oh, look, there's my website.
There's your website.
I was a wino, still am, and I got a little tired of it. I wanted to reinvent myself, and around 2000, I sold the business, and I was kind of feeling around for what I wanted to do. And one day, my neighbor, who was a butcher, saw me cooking some ribs, and he challenged me to a rib contest, a throwdown. And I went out looking for a book on the subject. Now, this is the year 2000. And there was hardly nothing out there. I couldn't find anything, a really good book on barbecue and grilling. So I said, well, why don't I write one? Yeah. And it only took me 16 years. But I finally wrote the book. And the recipe, last meal ribs, was the first thing on AmazingRibs.com, hence the name, AmazingRibs.com. And it was just, for fun. But it started getting a lot of traffic. And, my daddy told me, find something you love to do and make your living at it. And now that I gave up drinking for a living, I had to switch to solid food.
Delicious barbecue meals.
And it took off. Google started sending a lot of traffic to us, and within 5 years, it was my full-time job.
Wow. Wow, what a way to go. That's a really cool thing to happen, you know. As you said, if you can fall into something you absolutely adore doing, it must not be like going to work sometimes, if you know what I mean. Just sort of getting up and, all right, you probably got your day-to-day stuff, but then tinkering around with barbecues and all sorts of other little devices and testing rubs and sauces and all that sort of malarkey as well. It must be really, really cool.
It is, but, you know, it is also a small business. And I have a dozen people who work for me, either full or part-time. And, you know, there's the usual stuff that comes with this, breaking up fights. You know, I got right now I have a marketing director and a webmaster who are not getting along, you know.
Conflicting interests by any chance?
Pick up the dummies and give them back to them and sort the toys out and let them go again.
Yeah, we work it out. We work it out.
Yeah, of course. So we've got a question coming from the chat from Pickles Barbecue. He says, what's been the most surprising myth you have ever busted?
Well, there have been a bunch of them, and there's quite a few in the book. I think the one that surprises a lot of people the most is almost every barbecue book tells you to soak your wood before you put it on the fire. Now, let's go through the physics here. Wood is, well, there's a reason they build boats out of wood, because it doesn't absorb water. You know, and so we tested it. We took wood chunks and wood chips, and we soaked it, not just for an hour like most books say. We soaked them, weighed them up, then soaked them, and then weighed them again. And there was only like a 3 to 5% weight gain. And then when you cut into the wood, you see that all of the weight gain is right on the surface where the wood is fuzzy. Yeah. But where the grain is tight, there's no penetration unless there's a crack in the wood. So the water doesn't get in at all. So now what happens? Okay, what temperatures water boil at? Well, it boils at 100 degrees centigrade, 32 degrees Fahrenheit. 212 degrees Fahrenheit. So if you throw it on hot coals or burning gas, the water evaporates
exactly
at 100 degrees. Forgive me, I'm not real conversant in centigrade, but or Celsius, but at 212 Fahrenheit, the water boils off, but the wood doesn't start burning, combusting till 500 or 600 degrees. So there's all that smoke that you think is coming out of the wood, it's not.
No, steam.
It's steam. It's steam. And you can, just take a mirror and hold it up over there, and your mirror will fog up instantly. So you have to boil off the water before you start actually creating smoke. Then it has to go up to 500-600 Fahrenheit, and you start creating smoke. And at first, the smoke is what we call dirty smoke, and then it starts with what we call blue smoke or clean smoke. Yeah. So that's I think one of the most common myths is that you have to soak the wood chips. Another one, I don't know about your country, but barbecue seems to bring out the macho guys, and when I first started our website and I started telling people, use a thermometer. A thermometer will tell you whether your steak is overcooked or undercooked. It's embarrassing to bring in an expensive steak, set it down in front of your guests, and then have to, make excuses going, well, it kind of got away from me, with a thermometer.
Have some shoe leather.
Or, it's just gray, with a thermometer, there's a very precise temperature range. Again, you'll forgive me for using Fahrenheit. But somewhere between 130 and 135 degrees Fahrenheit is medium rare, and that's the temperature at which a steak is most juicy and most tender. And we know that. We can test it. They have a device called a Warner Bratzler machine, and it's an artificial tooth. And they put pressure on the meat and see how much pressure it takes to break through the surface. And so that's when you're at your ideal temperature. If you use an instant read thermometer, you'll get precision food. You won't have to make excuses. And, the other thing is people, it will all leak out. Psh. Well, if you take an 8-ounce filet mignon, 6 ounces of that, 75% of it is water. So if a few drops come out, it's not a balloon. You're not dehydrating it. So get over the fear of stabbing your meat with a thermometer. It's not going to hurt it at all. In fact, it's going to help you a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
So, another question from the chat. We got North Texas Barbecue Addicts. They're a Facebook group.
KC.
Kenneth wants to know if you've ever heard of the North Texas Barbecue Addicts Facebook group. They're a really big group. They're growing really quick. To be honest, Kenneth is a super nice guy. He won a thermometer, which I haven't sent yet, Kenneth. I'm sorry. That'll be going out on tomorrow. He won a little Inkbird unit. So, sorry, Kenneth.
Hold him to this here, Teddy.
I've got it. It's packaged up. It's going out. It's shipping out to Texas. My apologies. It was supposed to go today, but
shipping it to Texas.
Yeah.
Guys made of money.
That's going to cost you. No, I don't know that group in particular. There are so many barbecue groups on Facebook. And I got to say, I'm just not a big fan of Facebook anymore. I've been a member forever. I jumped on board early. It's deteriorated into something that I find unsavory. And it gets frustrating. I do post every day, at least once, a barbecue and cooking tip. And if I dare say you don't need to soak your wood chips, I'll get not just people disagree. I don't mind if people disagree with me. Fine, bring it on. I'll tell you the facts. But people who get violent and vicious, you effing asshole. You gotta soak the wood. It's like, let me explain the physics. You egghead scientists. It's not, that's just the nature of social media. I haven't joined any of the groups over there. If you're a joiner, forgive the commercial here, but take a look at our Pitmaster Club. We have 0 flame wars in there because we have moderators who put out the fires. We just don't allow politics, race, religion, sex. We stick to cooking. And if you get off the track, we reel you back in. And if you won't stay on the track, we kick your ass out. So
that's the best way to do it. You got to keep them on a leash. Sometimes it can, as you say, it can get out of control and really nasty for no reason. It's a fun thing to do. There's no right or wrong answers unless it's actually backed with, as you say, physics and facts. And if you can't understand that, well, maybe.
Now here, Riggs has got a question I love to answer.
It's
and
a good one, isn't it?
This one always draws hate mail on Facebook. What's my favorite type for wood for smoking and chips and chunks? Stop obsessing over wood. Think of your meal as an orchestra. The most important thing is have quality food, have quality meat. Get good meat. If you can, get it fresh. There's nothing really wrong with frozen, but there's more moisture loss to frozen food because crystals form when you freeze food. It pokes holes in the meat fibers and moisture drips out. It's called drip loss, and you see it in the packaging. There's liquid in there. But get good fresh meat. Use a good seasoning rub. Use your salt properly. Salt penetrates meat. Nothing else does. Paprika, garlic, sugar, pepper. The molecules are too large. They can't penetrate. They'll get maybe 1/8 of an inch in on the surface because there's cracks and crevices and puncture holes. And they'll get in a little bit. And that's good because that helps form the bark. But they don't get to the center. And if you don't believe me, do a pork loin or a pork roast or something, slice into it and take a core sample. Make sure that there's none of the knife doesn't push flavoring down in, and take a core sample or a turkey breast. You won't taste any of that stuff, but salt is just two little atoms, sodium and chloride. And when they get wet, they get an electrical charge. It's called ionization, and they move. They all get down in there. Sugar is 23. The smallest version of sugar is 23 molecules. It's huge. It can't get in. But salt will not only get inside, but salt does some cool stuff. Salt is the magic rock. Salt alters the flavor. Excuse me, salt doesn't alter the flavor. It amplifies the flavor. Garlic and pepper and all those others alter the flavor. So salt amplifies the natural flavor of the meat, and it also affects the protein and helps it hold on to moisture. So salt is essential to use, and you don't need a lot, but the other stuff doesn't get in. So, okay, you need good meat. You need a nice rub. You got to use salt, and you got to apply it in advance to give the salt a chance to move to the center. Then you've got to have temperature control. You need temperature control. You need to be cooking at the right temperature. The higher the temperature, the more the muscle fibers shrink, the more they squeeze out moisture. So keep your temperature low and slow. Then you need smoke control. You've got to develop good quality smoke. Now, I'm not talking about what type of wood you're using now. Good quality smoke, which means there is flame. You want flame from the wood. The flame signifies burning impurities. It burns off the impurities. Now, I know everybody says keep the flame down, but that's actually technically wrong. Just if you have a fireplace, throw a couple of logs on the fireplace, and you'll see as the wood heats up, you'll start seeing from the cracks and fissures yellow smoke exiting. It's full of impurities because it's cold wood. As the wood heats, the yellow flame signifies burning creosote, burning impurities, and so you'll get a good clean smoke. Then you've got your sauce. What kind of sauce and how much? Are you putting one thin layer on or 5 layers on? So now, of all of those flavors, the type of wood you choose is the least important. Now, I sometimes think I can smell the difference between hickory and apple, but it's very, very hard. Very, very hard. And tasting it is even harder. And if you're using a pellet smoker, 50% of your pellets are oak anyhow. It's almost impossible. All the top pitmasters in this country tend to use their local wood. If you're from Georgia, you use peach. If you're from Texas, you use mesquite. It's not essential. What is essential? Focus on this. Focus on quality meat. Focus on use of salt. Focus on rub. Focus on sauce. And what I recommend is you pick one wood and stick with it for a year. Don't use anything but that wood for a year. And now there are some, mesquite and hickory tend to be very strong. So they have more distinctive characteristics than the others. But I use mostly apple wood, and I stick with it, and that I don't screw around with different woods. I work on other things, and that's my standard. A lot of people obsess over, well, I'm cooking a turkey and I'm cooking a pork butt, and I want to use the right woods for both. Don't worry about it. Here's what's really scary. How do you know the wood you bought is really what's on the label? There is no appellation contrôlée over wood. You know, when the big hardware store chain picks up the phone and calls the rickyard where they bag the wood, hey, Harry, we need 5,000 bags of cherry wood down here. Holy cow, we only got 1,000. Oh, just throw some oak in there. They'll never know the difference. How do you know it really is cherry wood? Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
That's good advice there. Sound advice, mate.
Oh, God, I'm getting some good questions. What do I think? You want me to go ahead and answer these questions?
Yeah, carry on. What do you think of 321 ribs?
I'm not a fan. 2 hours in foil, I think, is too long. 1 hour in foil is enough. Basic concepts, right? Dry heat, foil or butcher paper, and then back to the dry heat. Love that concept. Works beautiful. But for me, 2 hours in foil turns the meat mushy.
It does.
And I think I prefer 3-1-1 or 4-1-1 or something like that. Or sometimes it doesn't even need the last 30 minutes at the end. Experiment with it.
I find that with the kind of ribs that we get in the UK, I can get away with sort of a 2-1-1 for a full rack of St. Louis style 2-1-1. I can tend to cook them.
Barbecue's catching on over there, obviously, because you guys are here. But I remember back in 2005, I went to the Jack Daniel's competition, and a team from Great Britain won it.
That was that Angus and Oink won that one?
Something cows. I don't remember their name. Something cows.
We will have to.
Yeah, I have to look it up. Don't know.
Keep them coming, guys.
Yeah, I was just thinking about the question. So
one more from the chat, and then we'll move on to the questions.
That's a good question. The smoke ring. The question is the smoke ring on meat really a smoke ring? Yes and no. It's actually a nitric oxide ring. Carbon monoxide plays a small role. And you can get it from the curing salts. You can get it from other means, but it comes from gases. But the gases are part of the smoke. Smoke is really complicated. It's made of gases. It's made of water vapor, a lot of water vapor in smoke, and it's made of tiny particles. And those gases, among them nitric oxide and carbon monoxide, what happens is, it's really interesting. I'm an old school photographer who learned how to do photography in a dark room. We used to have what they call developer, stop bath, and fixer. And the nitric oxide is like the fixer. It stops what's going on. The reason many meats are pink is it comes from a protein called myoglobin. And it's a natural protein, and that pink in the juices of a steak, they're not blood. People often call them blood. Every time you call it blood, somewhere a teenager becomes a vegan. It's just water with pink protein in it, myoglobin in it, and that's the natural color of myoglobin. So what happens is when you're smoking, the nitric oxide and the carbon monoxide do penetrate the top surface of the meat, and they stop the meat from changing color. Because as you know, when you cook meat, it goes from purple. Let's say we're talking about a steak. It goes from a purple to rosy red to pink to tan to brown or gray. Well, that's the natural progression, and that's because the myoglobin is changing colors. That changing colors is due mostly to myoglobin. Well, the nitric oxide and the carbon monoxide stop the color change, and it stops it just in the surface where it can penetrate. Down below it, the color change continues. So you get a pink smoke ring, and then you get a color change below that. So your ribs will turn brown in the center, but they'll have that pink ring on the outside. But it has no flavor. What it is simply a visual confirmation that you've cooked with smoke.
Wow, that's a super cool answer. Thank you very much.
Bunch of Swine was the name of the UK team that won the Jack Daniels.
What's the name?
Bunch of Swines.
Bunch of Swine, is that them? Okay, I thought it was something cows. I can't tell the difference between a cow and a pig. Jeez.
Well, at least that's what good old Google says. Whether or not I'm incorrect, that might be the case.
Oh, Google's always right. Always right. Google runs the world. We just live in it.
Right, so we're going
Right.
to use some questions from us now. We'll come back to some chat questions in a minute. Remember to use the hashtag. So, what pits do you actually use in your backyard? What's your go-to cookers at home?
Well, although I have a guy on our team who works full-time testing grills and smokers, I occasionally let him give me one so I can play with it. So it's a constant churn. It's a constant rotation. But I try to keep on hand always because I'm more in charge of recipes. And so I'm always working on recipes, both for the website and the book. And I want to make sure they work on a variety of devices. So I always make sure I have the classic Weber Smoky Mountain on hand. I have a classic Big Green Egg XL on hand. I have a gas grill. I have a pellet smoker. I have a couple of pizza ovens. Right now I have 3 pizza cookers. Can you tell that I married an Italian American?
Brilliant.
And several other odd devices. Weber kettle. I gotta have a Weber, so I can, so when I work on a recipe, I can make sure it works on devices people have at home.
Oh,
all right,
makes sense.
Cool. So
Now, if you want brand names, I mentioned my pellet smoker at the moment, and I'm very fond of it, is a MAK, M-A-K, 2-star General. It's quite an amazing device. I love pellet smokers when I'm working on recipe development because I want to tell the reader how long it has to cook. And the beauty of the pellet smokers is they're pretty much rock solid on the temperature if they're set properly. Yeah. And so if I can say 5-pound pork bud, but it will take X number of hours, I can get that figure from the pellet smoker. Whereas if I'm doing it on a Weber Smoky Mountain or a Big Green Egg, the temperature fluctuations are too great for me to be precise.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
And I love my Weber kettle. There's an insert available for it. I don't know if it's sold in your country. It's called the Slow and Sear.
Yeah, we've heard a lot about these Slow and Sears.
It's an insert. Sells for about $100 American, and it goes in there. And you could just go to AmazingRibs.com and look it up. You'll see how it works. It can turn the Weber kettle into a very good smoker, and it improves its ability to sear. So, hence slow and sear.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah, they've been mentioned a few times. They go with a couple of different guests, the Slow and Sear.
Yeah, it's really very clever design, and it works.
Yeah,
that's all you need at the end of the day. You can put it in and just let it do its thing.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's just my wife and I don't, need to do a lot of meats, So Weber, regular normal size Weber kettle is just fine, and it's easy to manage, easy to operate.
So, should we talk about your rubs and sauces that you're developing?
The word is out, huh? We don't yet have a product on the market. But one of the bigger companies that makes rubs and sauces in this country came to us and said, if you came out with a rub and sauce, because the website is so well known and so popular, it'd probably sell really well. And I said, well, what do you mean really well? And she threw a number at me, and I said, okay.
I'm in.
We're in the very early stage now. We're going to launch with 3 rubs and 3 sauces, and we've been tasting them. We have the poultry rub, the pork rub, the poultry rub, and the red meat rub just about perfected. The pork rub still needs work, but it looks something like this. It's got my ugly face on it.
That is a cool logo.
It's not bad.
Sort of,
it's not bad. It's very simple.
Yeah.
Very simple, but it's something that comes from my heart, so it's got my name on it.
Very cool.
So when you've come up with those
barbecue talk show exclusive, isn't it? That on the
I mentioned it. I've mentioned it on one podcast in the United States. So you've got the European exclusive.
Yeah, I heard. To be honest, I heard you. That was on Greg's show. I heard you talking about it. So that's. I listened to that. But yeah. So
When you've come up with those rubs, have you been quite scientific in your approach, or are you,
No,
throw it together and see what it tastes like?
there's not a lot
How
of
would you go about
science there. One of the things I propagate is that rubs should not contain salt, because salt penetrates and the other things don't.
it? Mhm.
And salt penetrates slowly. Meat is very dense and there's a lot of water, and it takes salt time to penetrate. I recommend you apply the salt by the pound so that you get equal distribution in the meat, whether it's a long flat slab like ribs or a round blob like pork butt. You apply salt, half a teaspoon. We use Morton's kosher salt as a standard and everything, not because they paid us, because it's common and it doesn't contain much additives. And so half a teaspoon of Morton's kosher salt per pound of meat. But the rub you apply, since it's staying on the surface, by the amount of surface area. So on a slab of ribs, you've got a lot of surface area. So you would want more seasoning, the herbs and spices. When we took that concept to the manufacturer, he said, you're right. I'd never heard of that idea, but it makes perfect sense. I got one problem with it. You'll be the highest price bottle on the shelf, because salt is cheap and most rubs are 50% salt.
Mm-hmm.
So we went through a lot of agony, my team and I. But this concept of applying the salt early is a concept that we call dry brining. And I'm pretty sure I coined the term dry brining. I don't think anybody had used it prior to me. And it's just, as opposed to wet brining, where you put the meat in a bucket of water, here you just sprinkle the salt on the surface and the water comes out from the meat, dissolves the salt and pulls it in. So we have called this, I don't know if you can see the fine print, Meathead's
dry brine,
pork seasoning and dry brine.
Oh, okay.
So we got away with sticking the salt in there, and we're calling it seasoning and dry brine. But if you apply it early, then the salt will penetrate. So
excellent.
The economics just didn't work if we didn't put salt in it. So
no. Interesting one from the chat is, do you think it's necessary to wash meat before cooking? You see,
this is a tough one. It is a tough one. I mean, depending on how fresh the meat is, there can be slime, and that slime can have bacteria in it. Now it typically doesn't have flavor. So if you just cook it, you're going to kill it all. Your meat's going to be safe. Almost all of these foodborne pathogens die at 165 degrees. So if you're going to, cook a steak, you're way over 165. Almost instantly, it's dead. Now the question is it leaving any flavor behind? I don't think it does, but I've never really tested it. Fortunately, my grocers sell pretty good meat, so there's not a lot of slime.
Yeah.
The flip side of the coin is the food safety experts warn us that when you wash meat, you don't see it, but a lot of the water creates tiny little droplets. It vaporizes and volatilizes. That goes up. And if you've got your dish drain right next to the sink, like most of us do, where there's clean dishes, or where you will put clean dishes, and any of those bacteria that are on the surface float up and land on that, or if you inhale it or it gets on your clothes, then you're creating a health risk. So they tell you not to. I'll confess, when I pick out a piece of meat, if it feels a little slimy, I'll put it in the sink, but I'll keep it down low, and I'll make sure the water pressure is very low, and I'll try to rinse it off with my hands rather than blasting it with a heavy stream of water. If the meat feels fine, then I don't wash it. I don't worry about it. So I guess it's a matter of how slimy it is.
Yeah. It's down to preference.
Absolutely.
while you're in the chat, there's another question from Pickles Barbecue.
Oh, that's a really good one, and I have a good answer for that. Every chef in the world will tell you to let your meat rest when it comes out of the oven or off the grill or out of a frying pan, that it somehow redistributes the fluids. This has never been proven. This has never been shown in a lab, in a research facility, and I'm highly skeptical. Juice is inside meat. There's no highways in there. They don't go running from one side to the other. They're trapped in the muscle fibers or in between the muscle fibers. And I just don't believe they need to sit at room temperature for 10 minutes to redistribute themselves. And that, of course, is just cooling off the meat. Everybody wants meat. I love seeing a steak put in front of me that's still sizzling. And if you're talking about juiciness, one of the major factors that influences the juiciness of the food is saliva. And if you put a sizzling steak in front of me, my mouth is watering, and that affects the juiciness. So we have done a test where we, take meats off the smoker or off the grill, slice into them, measure the amount of juice that comes out. And we've done it for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. And there is slightly more juice that comes out when you slice it right at the beginning. But let's use a steak for an example. You bring a steak in. Well, first of all, you're not serving it instantly because you got to march it in from the grill. You put it down on the plates. You got to serve everybody. It takes them 4 or 5 minutes before people start eating. But you start cutting into it. And that myoglobin, not blood, starts running. And you think about it, by the way, if you're skeptical about what I said about myoglobin earlier, blood is dark. It's almost black. And if it was blood, it would coagulate.
Exactly.
It's water. It's pink water. But that stuff comes to running out of the meat. Okay. So when it runs out of the meat, what do? You mop it up on your fork. So if it came out of the meat, it goes right back in on your fork. I have never seen somebody, when they're done eating, turn in a dinner plate that was swimming in juices.
Nope.
No.
It goes right back into the meat,
up with the chips and everything else.
So what is the big fuss about this? Now, I differentiate between resting meat and holding meat. We do know, I have tasted the difference between brisket. You take it off and you dig right in, and you take it off and you put it in a Cambro or a faux Cambro, and you let it sit for an hour or two. I've noticed a difference taste. So we call that holding. That's you're going to cook your brisket way up. Forgive me again, Fahrenheit, 203 Fahrenheit or so. You're going to cook a steak to 130 to 135. Very different temperatures.
Yeah.
So the muscle fibers, essentially tubes, not relax. Well, do they? Okay. Well, things expand when they get hot, and they shrink when they get cold. So if the muscle fibers are responding to the heat, wouldn't you think that they would expand? But no, they don't. They shrink. So, if they've shrunk, when they sit at room temperature for 10 minutes, will they expand back to their original size? I doubt it. But again, this has never been proven. I actually went to Texas A&M University and offered to underwrite a research project, but these sorts of things, they have to find a grad student who wants to do the research. I talked to the University of Minnesota. We just haven't been able to find somebody who wants to do the research.
Okay.
But it's an open question. If there's any meat scientists in the audience that want to do the research, I'd love to see it. But I just am very skeptical that resting. Now, we have seen, and others have observed this also, that 5 minutes of resting and the amount of juice exuded is less. But after 5 minutes, well, that's 5 minutes to get it in from the grill to the table, and everybody starts.
Exactly.
And the other thing is when they do these tests, they'll take the meat and they'll slice it all up and measure the liquid. Is that how you eat a steak?
No,
I take one slice, I eat it,
Right.
I go for the beans, I eat some of the beans, I eat some potato, I take a drink of wine, I got another slice of meat.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I mean, it's just it doesn't add up to me.
I mean, going back to the you said that you tested by cutting a steak right at the beginning, and then one that had been rested for 10
Actually,
minutes.
we did the test with pork loin, but yes, go ahead.
Okay, so but you're saying that you had marginally more with the freshly cut than you did with the one. Of course you were going to, because what happens when you leave something that's hot out on the side? It's steaming, so you're gonna lose moisture from sitting there. So
this was liquid coming flowing. It was myoglobin. It was,
of course.
and marginally it was something in the neighborhood of 2 tablespoons, which is not a huge amount of meat.
No, it's not.
I mean, a huge amount of liquid. and
fair,
you pour that on top of the meat, and it goes right back in.
I'm much the same as you.
Hot meat.
I like my food hot. Yeah, exactly. I don't want it tepid or fucking cold.
It's going to get cold sitting in front of you.
Exactly. It doesn't. Personally, in my opinion, it doesn't make any difference. I prefer to eat my food hot, not cold. So
just sort of gravitating back
to
to
your barbecue is saying opinions. Well, of course it's
No.
No,
He was correcting his options instead of opinion.
Oh, okay. I thought he was saying, that guy's just voicing his opinion. Well,
No. Charlie's
I get that though. That's just your opinion. Well, it is, but it's reasonably well-educated opinion. And it's one area. It's one myth that I think I'm right on, but I'm not sure because I haven't seen the science. Most of the other myths that I try to bust, we're pretty darn sure about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and that's the wonderful thing about having you on, Meathead. You've sort of been there. You've done the work. You've got the information to back up what you're talking about. Not many people do. To be honest, not many people do. So let's just touching back on your rubs at the moment. Have you ever got a personal favourite? Is there one out in the lead for you?
I honestly, this is going to sound like a commercial, but I like them all. The Meathead's Memphis dust is hugely popular. All of these recipes are free on my website, where you can make them up. There's no salt in them, so you can apply the salt separately. And we're starting with the basic recipe from the website, but we're altering it slightly because the salt is in there. And also we're smoking a lot of the ingredients, so they have smoke flavor going in for people who are stuck in apartments or dormitories. So there'll be a little different, but the Memphis dust, which is the pork rub, is really popular in the U.S. and a lot of competition teams use it, or they make a variation of it on their own. You're welcome to go to the website and take it and make a variation on it of your own. The poultry rub we smilingly call Simon and Garfunkel because its base is parsley, sage, rosemary, and thyme, and herbs on parsley on poultry are really the right way to go. I think in this country, a lot of people want to put the same rub they use on pork, and then they put the sweet red sauce on top. And I think that's too much for poultry. I like to sprinkle herbs on poultry, and that's it.
Yeah, much the same.
I'm sure you guys get it right.
I managed to break. I managed to ruin a lot of meat.
It's all
part of the learning curve, though, isn't it?
So have I. My wife shudders when I'm experimenting. We've had a lot of. We keep a nice stack of restaurant delivery services and near the right handy. Many times we sit down to dinner and it's like, okay, we're getting pizza tonight.
Nice.
Charlie's on fire tonight. He's got another question,
really is, man.
and it's a really good question as well. Actually,
What's Charlie got?
What do you think the most underused spices are?
Well, I think herbs are in general. I mean, everybody goes in this country. I don't know about your country, but everybody in this country goes for garlic powder, onion powder,
Paprika,
black pepper, paprika. And a paprika in this country is just the most boring. It has almost no flavor.
Yep.
We make our own here in this house. We grow a variety of red pepper that it has wonderful flavor, and we dehydrate it and grind it into powder, or I'll smoke it and then grind it into powder. And they have wonderful flavor. The bottled paprika in this country is really just for color. But I think go for the herbs. Now, the Memphis dust that I mentioned that everybody seems to like has two really interesting ingredients that really differentiates it. It's got ginger and it's got rosemary. They're really distinctive flavors, and they're really to make it taste different and nice, and it works. The ginger I discovered in a Chinese restaurant. I ordered ribs in a Chinese restaurant long before I started my barbecue career, and I noticed that there was ginger in their marinade, and I thought, well, yeah, that really works. And so when I came to make my rub, I immediately put ginger in it. So that's one that I don't see in a lot. Something else, tamarind. Tamarind is a paste, and it's a very sweet and a very tart paste, and it works really well in barbecue sauces. You can get it if you can't find it in a grocery. It's popular in Indian cuisine and other Asian cuisines, but if you can't find it in the store, you can. Here we order it on Amazon, but it's a fun ingredient to add to sauces, and it really adds a layer of flavor. And the other thing is the Asian flavors. I'm working on another book. God help me. This first book is The Science of Great Barbecue and Grilling. The next book is called The Meathead Method, and it's the barbecue art meets science. I actually did my master's in art, and I in this new book we'll talk a lot about how to break outside the box of your standard sweet red sauce barbecue and how to do fun. Well, tonight I am doing a recipe I'm experimenting with for the book. Salmon takikomi gohan, salmon rice. It's a typical popular Japanese dish where salmon is steamed in with the rice. Well, I've taken it to the smoker first. So I've smoked the salmon lightly. Then it's going to go into the rice and steam, along with some kombu, which is a seaweed, and some celery leaves. If you've never played with celery leaves, it's a wonderful herb. The first time I tasted it was in a clam chowder, just as a garnish in the clam chowder. Boy, it's great.
1 second, my son's just woken up. Sorry, guys.
Just clobbering. But celery leaves are a lot, so I'm going to try it with celery. That's the recipe I'm playing with tonight.
Okay, over here we just use the stem of the celery. We chop it up and generally put it in casseroles or slow cook it or something like that, and it gives a really sort of mildy onion flavour, isn't it? Celery, it's good. So that's the kind of thing.
Play with the celery leaves; they're fun.
Yeah, I'll give that a go. We just discard them, to be honest. We don't.
Yeah, most people here do too. They throw them in a soup stock, throw them in a gravy. Just think of them as another herb, and it's always fresh because you have it year round. When in winter, most of your fresh herbs are gone.
Yeah, that's a fair point. So let's talk about we're obviously into the festive season now, the holiday season. We touched on brining and turkeys earlier and how the salt penetrates the turkey. If you were to give one top tip to your average guy, like I've never brined a turkey, and I'm planning to do it this time. What one single piece of advice could you give me to make the turkey come out good?
Can't keep it to one.
All right, okay, let's open it out then to as many as can make my turkey work well.
Let's start with the general concepts.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, I don't know about your country, but turkey in this country, most of them now are labeled enhanced. The law in this country allows the producer to inject them with a salt solution, saline solution, up to about 10%. And so they can stick 10% of water and salt in there. Well, a lot of people really are upset about this, but I think it's reasonably good because it removes the need to brine the meat. You're putting a brine in there. You're injecting it. It helps retain moisture, but it also dilutes it somewhat. Oh, there he is.
There he is.
Oh, he's not quite awake yet.
I'm gonna wave.
What's his name?
Hello, Lucas.
Luca. Hey, Luca. I'm Meathead.
Hey,
isn't that a funny name? So they come kind of pre-brined in this country, and people want to do the brine thing, but it's not really necessary if it's been salted. I don't know how often that happens in your country, but if it has not been injected, then brining makes sense. And you don't have to get a 5-gallon bucket. A lot of people pour apple juice, garlic, pepper, orange peels and stuff. It's a total waste of money and time. It can't go beyond the surface. The molecules are too large. And if you cut open your turkey breast and take a core sample, you won't taste any of that stuff. So you've just wasted a gallon of apple juice or 2 gallons of apple juice. And you've got this big bucket. You've got to keep ice in it and to keep it safe and stuff.
Yeah.
Just simply dry brine it. The day before you eat it, take it out of the plastic, pull everything out of the gut, and sprinkle it with the salt. And be generous, especially in the thick parts. In the thin parts, you don't need as much because it will penetrate. And that's all you need to do. It's dry brining. It works fine. It's easy. It doesn't take up a lot of space in the fridge. Now, that's number one. You can put all the spices and herbs you want on the surface.
Hey, I'm listening to you. You know exactly what you're talking about. I've never done it before. So.
I've got this whole procedure on AmazingRibs.com. It's called the Ultimate Turkey, and it really works. People just rave about it all the time. Okay, so the other thing is as we all know, brown is beautiful, right? Brown is flavor. When things turn brown, it's the Maillard chemical reaction. Probably most everybody in the audience here knows about that. Well, when you cook a turkey all whole, we call it Norman Rockwell because he was a painter who painted a famous picture of a turkey like that. The cavity doesn't get brown because cold air bubble in there and the hot air doesn't really get in. So the cavity is pale. And it also takes a long time to cook. This is a really important concept, not just for turkey, for everything. And a lot of people go, oh, wow, why didn't I realize this? When you cook in an oven and a grill or a smoker is just an oven outdoors. Yeah. It's an oven. The hot air cooks the outside of the meat, but it can't penetrate the meat. What happens is that the energy from the hot air builds up in the outer surfaces of the meat. And as it builds up in those outer surfaces, it works its way slowly to the center. So the hot air cooks the outside of the meat, but the outside of the meat cooks the inside of the meat. So it takes longer for the hot air to heat the outside and then for it to work its way to the center if you've got this big whole bird.
Yeah.
So spatchcocking or cutting it into pieces makes a huge amount of sense because now the hot air can attack it from both sides. And you can brown all sides, the interior as well as the exterior. So you're cooking it faster, which means less moisture loss.
Yep.
And you're browning all sides, which means more flavor.
Yeah.
So if you want to serve a very large festive bird, you spatchcock it, which means simply you get a really good pair of kitchen shears and you cut the backbone out and you spread it out and butterfly it. If you want, I mean, just get, cut the legs off and break the breast in 2 parts, and you can go that way too. That works really well. Cooking whole animals is generally a bad idea. People always want to roast a hog. That's a bad idea. Cooking a whole turkey is a bad idea because white meat cooks at a different rate than dark meat. Thin pieces cook at a different rate than thick pieces. You're going to do a whole hog. The tenderloin, which is best at 140 degrees Fahrenheit. Sorry about the Fahrenheit, guys.
I cook in Fahrenheit.
But the hams need to be 200 degrees. So how do you do that? So in any case, spatchcocking or breaking it into parts is a much better way. It'll cook faster, remain juicier, and you get more brown all over. One more trick, and this is what makes it the ultimate. On a smoker or a grill, you get a metal pan, and you preferably stainless steel or enamel, and not aluminum, and you put it underneath the grill grate.
Yeah.
And in that pan, you put some celery leaves, some celery, some carrots, some apples, some herbs. You got, just a little handful of whatever you got on hand. Yeah. You can throw some white wine in there. You can throw some beer in there, throw some chicken stock in there. But basically, you want to make this into a stock because the bird will drip, and this will catch the drippings, and they'll be smoky and flavorful. And you throw the neck in there. You throw the gizzard and the heart. You don't throw the liver in there. Liver has a funny flavor. Throw all the giblets in there. Take the tips of the wings off, throw them in there, trim all the fat from around the cavity and the skin, throw that all in there. And what you're making now as the bird cooks is a turkey soup, a turkey stock, and it's fantastic. So you're going to shoot for, in the U.S., 160 degrees Fahrenheit, around 150. You pull that tray out, and you bring it inside and you strain it, get rid of all the solids. They've given up their goodness. And now you have this magnificent, rich turkey soup or stock underneath there. And you taste it. And if it's just right, you're done. If it needs a little salt, add a little salt. If it's a little weak, then you just put it in a pot on the stovetop and you reduce it. You cook it down a notch until it's thicker. You'll have more than enough for the turkey. You don't need to add flour and turn it into a paste. Just leave it thin like this. And when you drizzle it on the turkey, it can actually penetrate the meat and add wonderful flavor to it. But you'll have leftover. And that leftover, I just warm up in the microwave the next day and drink it by the cup load. Or this year, my wife made a turkey pot pie. And we used that stock in the filling for the turkey pot pie. So it's just fantastic stuff. You will have leftover, and you will be glad of that.
Yeah,
that's my turkey.
This particular turkey's going on a rotisserie on a kettle, so that's going to work perfectly because everything's going to drip down into the tray, like you said. So yeah, that's the plan for Christmas.
I'm salivating just thinking about that.
I'm going to be outside hunched over the Weber while you.
Pickles has got the it's like he's setting me up. Beer can chicken just doesn't do what you think. Well, not you, because you know Pickles, but people think, oh man, it's the beer. Let's do the math.
You're just using it as a stand to keep the bird.
It's just a stand. First of all, the beer cannot go through the metal can, so it's not getting into the chicken. If it's going anywhere, it'll come out of the top. But the beer is 90% water. So what temperature does water boil? 212. Is that beer going to get up to 212? Not if it's wrapped in a chicken. Do you use the word koozie there? We call a chicken a beer koozie. A beer koozie.
I know what you're talking about.
It's a little foam rubber jacket we put around beers.
Yeah.
Keep the beer cold. Well, the chicken is a chicken koozie. It comes out of the refrigerator at 38 degrees Fahrenheit. It's cold. It keeps the beer cold. The beer never, and we put the thermometers in there, the beer never gets any hotter than the chicken. It can't. It's one thermal mass. So it's never going to boil. If you get that chicken up to 212, you're going to have a piece of charcoal to eat. Your chicken is 160 is 50 degrees Fahrenheit below boiling point. So it's not going to boil. And when you weigh the can beforehand, weigh the can afterwards, it's either the same, and in some occasions it's more because fat drips into it. And when the fat drips into it, it lays on top of the beer and makes a cover on the beer. So there's no way it could evaporate. And even if it did evaporate, where's it going to go? There's this little tiny space above the beer can where the shoulder is, and it's not going to penetrate the meat. Remember, the meat is 75% water. It's fully saturated. There's no room for the beer in there. You can take a piece of chicken and soak it in a vat of beer, pull it out, take a core sample, and there's no beer flavor in it because the chicken is fully saturated. There's no way the beer is going to penetrate. And even if it could, even if the chicken's been sitting around and getting dry and that moisture could get in, it's not going to run from the little tiny bit in the shoulders all the way down through the breast, to the legs, to the wings. It just doesn't work. All it does is make that chicken look cool. And it does look cool. It does look cool. And people say, but my beer can chicken is fantastic. Of course it's fantastic. It's roast chicken, for crying out loud. Yeah. Everybody loves roast chicken.
You gotta go some not to love roast chicken, that's for sure, mate. Yeah. Fair play. That's that question. Definitely the box is ticked. So
what's your favorite side dishes to accompany your turkey?
Well, in the US we make what we call stuffing or dressing. It's a bread thing, and I love that stuff. In fact, I think I like it better than the turkey.
I'm a pigs and blanket fan, me, for a Christmas dinner.
We traditionally serve a cranberry sauce, and my wife makes a wonderful cranberry sauce with orange and Asian pear. And then there's typical string beans, mashed potatoes, sweet potatoes. A lot of people in this country like to do the sweet potatoes with marshmallows on top. I'm not a big fan of that, but I do love sweet potatoes.
See, I heard one of my colleagues at work had mentioned sweet potatoes with marshmallows on top.
Yeah, it's very common. You just take the sweet potatoes, you skin them, you cut them into slices, lay them in a pan, and then you bake them. And near the end of the baking, you put marshmallows on top, and the marshmallows brown. And you serve it with the marshmallows, and often you put some maple syrup in there with the it's really popular. And we have
full-on sweetness overload for me.
It is. We have sweet tooth in this country.
Yeah,
I like that, but I don't know if I'd want it with a turkey on Christmas. Well,
it's a tradition in this country.
Yeah. I was going to ask you about bread sauce, but that's completely blown my mind. Have you ever heard of a bread sauce? It's like you literally make it out of white bread with a little bit of flour in there and herbs and spices, and like you typically eat bread sauce in the UK with turkey. But
it sounds like something similar to what we call stuffing, which is usually dried bread cubes. Mixed with either some chicken stock or some turkey stock and seasonings, and then some chopped celery and some other goodies. You can throw raisins in there if you want. It's really very tasty. Sounds like a variation on the theme.
Yeah, it sounds like it sounds pretty similar, to be honest. Okay, that's cool. So your favourite sides, we've covered that. Alternative meats for Christmas, the holiday season. Sorry, what do you pick up on that over in the States?
Well, we have a holiday here in late November called Thanksgiving, and it's a harvest festival, and it's a festival to celebrate the bounty of the garden and the fields and the harvest. And turkey is almost required at this meal. Almost everyone eats turkey for that. So in our house, we look for something different for Christmas, and our tradition, and it is from many others, is a beef roast. and I will do a prime rib. Now this year is going to be different. It's just my wife and me. But typically, it's her large Italian American family lives nearby, and we will have 20 people or so. So I'll get a full prime rib, and I'll get it bone in. But this is another technique. I'll remove the bones. Bones do not add flavor when you're dry cooking food, when you're roasting. Bones are coated in calcium. Now, there is flavor on the inside of the bone in the marrow, but that marrow cannot get into the meat when you're roasting it or smoking it. Now, if you're braising it, if you're cooking it in a stew, water is in that stew. Water is a solvent. Water will pull the marrow flavor out and will flavor the meat. So that's where short ribs you cook in a pot with wine and other solvents, and they pull the marrow out. But if you're doing a ribeye steak with the bone attached, the bone has no effect on the flavor other than it's a heat shield. It's like on the space shuttle or a space capsule. It blocks the heat from getting in. And if you've eaten a bone-in ribeye, you know that the meat closer to the bone is more rare. On the opposite side, it's cooked. Now, I don't know about you, but I generally I like 130, 135 medium rare throughout. So I will remove the bones from the standing rib roast. And then I will peel off most of the fat, because fat does not penetrate. Again, meat 75% water, oil and water don't mix. The surface fat cannot, under any circumstances, not on this planet, enter the meat. Now, you've all been told fat is flavor. That's true. It's the fat that's already inside the meat, the marbling, that adds flavor. You want that. But you don't need the fat on the outside. It's not going to do anything. And if you put your rub all over that fat and then you cut this meat and you serve it, what's the first thing people are going to do? They're going to cut off the fat, and there goes all your rub. So and same thing for brisket. Trim as much of that fat as you can. Leave maybe a quarter inch, because then it'll shrink and it'll be flavorful and people will eat that. And get most of the fat, get the bone off, and then I cinch it until it's round. When it's round, it heats evenly from all sides. So now I've got a roast that is cooked properly, and then I almost always reverse sear it. And, and I'm sure you and your team have talked about reverse sear. But reverse sear is something that we've been pushing for years. It is one of the single most important cooking techniques you can learn. Set up your grill in 2 zones. Put the meat on the cold side away from the heat and let it roast gently, slowly. Give the heat a chance to penetrate and be even throughout. You don't want this rainbow effect. If you cook it hot right over the direct heat or in just a very hot oven, you're going to have a beautiful brown exterior, then a layer of brown beneath it, then a layer of tan, then a layer of pink, and then finally in the center, a small layer of rosy, perfectly cooked meat. If you warm it slowly, it will be even color, edge to edge, even temperature, edge to edge, but the exterior will be but ugly. And so when it's almost done, you then move it over the direct heat side, where it can enjoy infrared radiation. Infrared radiation is what you need to sear meat. People with Kamados and other grills, they tell me, oh, my grill gets up to 600 degrees. Hot air will not brown as well as infrared radiation. And you get infrared radiation from flame and glowing coals. So you need infrared to sear. And you move the meat over the direct side where you got infrared, and now you sear the exterior. You showed, can you pull up that picture of my homepage again?
Give us a couple of seconds.
Of course he can.
Because there's a picture of this roast on my homepage.
Okay.
But you get this beautiful dark crust and perfectly even color throughout. Okay, scroll down. There she is. Whoop, whoop. And I don't know if you can make it larger, but that is There you go. Wow, you guys are good. Oh,
Matt's good. I just talk. Matt's good.
Yep, and there's my advertising in front of it. Oh well.
Mhm.
But in any case, look.
Can I get rid of that? Can I?
That's not Photoshop. Look at the evenness of the color, and yet look at how dark that crust is. That's a good, flavorful, dark, crunchy crust with a great rub on it, and it's reverse sear. And notice it's round, so it's even cooked. That I think is the ideal roast.
It looks perfect. It's delicious.
It is.
Mm. So this is going to be a bit of a controversial one. One of my best friends is a vegetarian, right? He's a great guy.
Sorry for him.
Oh no, he can drink. He's a good guy. He drinks. It goes back a long. I can give you the backstory. Basically, good old English school trips. We went out to a slaughterhouse, as you call it, or an abattoir.
You took him to a slaughterhouse?
No, when we were kids, we went out to like the school trip was to an abattoir.
Oh my god!
Basically,
that'll turn anyone into a vegetarian.
He come out. He never ate meat again. I was quite interested because.
Well, I mean, you know, it is. It isn't pretty.
No, it's not.
We are alpha on the food chain, and we eat all that are below us. And in order to do so, we have to kill animals, and it isn't pretty. Cycle. And if you're not comfortable with that, then you should become a vegetarian.
And totally, he hasn't eaten meat since we were 11 years old. Yeah. It was one of the last things we've done at little school. Went to an abattoir,
but we all know that meat is one of the great pleasures of food. I mean, it tastes wonderful, and there is nutrition value to it. There are things in meat that aren't in vegetables that you need, and vegetarians have to take certain vitamins. B12 is one. They have to take B12 and other things to make sure that they have what they need. It's no big deal, but I love my vegetables. My wife is a master gardener, and we have 2 big gardens. And in August, there are many weeks when we eat little or no meat, when we're just eating from the garden. There's a recipe on our website called of eggplant parmesan. I do eggplant parmesan on the grill, and it's wonderful. I grill the eggplant. I grill the tomatoes and make the tomato sauce from fire roasted tomatoes, and then I finish the whole thing on the grill. It's really delicious. And there are a number of there's a tomato soup over there.
Well, I was just wondering for vegetable options. You know, you got your nut roast and all of that sort of stuff. But for your holiday season, are you aware of any other sort of?
Well, options? I like to say that anything you cook indoors, you can cook outdoors, only better. I mean, whatever you like. I mean, I've grilled romaine lettuce. I have a basic simple salad recipe where I grill apples and throw them on the salad with some smoked nuts. You can grill cabbage. You cut the cabbage in quarters. You can season it, or you can sweeten it with some honey and some water. You can grill that. One of our favorite dishes is a zucchini dish that is grilled. We write about something we call sous vide Q on our website, where I'm not going to get deep into sous vide, but if you do sous vide, you know that when the food comes out of the bag, it's ugly and it hasn't had the Maillard reaction. And for most people, they throw it in a hot frying pan. But I try to teach people how to throw it on the grill or the smoker, and that really works great. And sous vide Q carrots are awesome. So Brussels sprouts are great on the grill. I like to do eggplant caponata.
Yeah. I'm just looking at different options. You know, you find you always put on your your squeaky cheese, as I call it, or the Greek cheese, and then it's always on a skewer or some kind of.
I've actually been writing about grilling halloumi and other cheeses that are hard enough to be grilled. Parmigiano Reggiano. It doesn't have a wax coating. The exterior of the Parmigiano Reggiano wheel is just dehydrated cheese, and it's really hard. I mean, if you try, I learned this when I visited a Caseifici, a Parmigiano Reggiano plant in Italy, and the woman who I met there said, "Take these Parmesan rinds and throw them on the grill. If you do, they don't melt and drip into the grill, but they get soft and pliable, and you put it on a piece of French bread, and it's kind of like a taffy. You can put, boy, is it good on a French bread, on a baguette." Yeah, there are some cheeses that you can definitely grill that are fun.
Yeah, for sure. I've just been reading through the chat. Sorry, Riggs. There's a question in it we've actually got coming up, but I'll chuck it out anyway. So there we go. What's the craziest thing, or extravagant thing that you've ever tried? I presume on the grill or barbecue.
Well, the most extravagant thing I've ever tried was foie gras, and you can probably guess what happened. It melted and went right through the grates, and I wasted a lot of money. Yeah, you got to cook foie gras in a pan, or in some sort of container. I don't know. I mean, I'm pretty adventurous. I'll try anything. For my new book, I'm trying to do a lot of Spanish and Asian and other dishes to show barbecue lovers that they don't have to stick to the standard ribs and pulled pork and brisket and so on.
Yeah.
So I you know, I've cooked snake.
All right. What does snake taste like?
Like chicken.
Everything tastes like chicken.
That's your standard answer. It tastes like chicken.
Yeah, it tastes like chicken. Everything does.
Sorry, got another question. Yeah, your idea of mother sauces, in other words, several sauces that represent the variations of American barbecue culture.
Well, yeah, I mean, when I think of the mother sauces, I think of the French mother sauces, you know, Bordelaise and Espagnole and so on. But the barbecue sauce mother sauces, they're really fun. And we have the classic Kansas City red sauce, which is sweet, often has molasses. We have the South Carolina mustard sauce, which I think is excellent on pulled pork. It's my favorite sauce for pulled pork. You have your Eastern Carolina vinegar sauce. It's pretty much just vinegar, hot peppers, black pepper, and salt. In Western North Carolina, they put a little tomato in there, not much. They're really good at very fatty foods, cutting the fat. So I've written about all of them, and they're fun, and they work differently, and they're fun to experiment with. And you know, I like to say, unless you're living at home with your parents in their basement, if you're a grown-up adult, you need to have a couple of your own sauce recipes. Start with mine, and then riff on them, take off and your way, throw in this, that, and the other thing. But you know, you got to have something you put down on the table in a jelly jar, and when people taste it, they say, "Wow, that's good."
What? Yeah, exactly.
And of course, the answer is, like, if I told you, I'd have to kill you. You know, that old joke. I mean, that you know, that everybody's got to do that.
Definitely. Mike from the Dude's Kitchen and Grill wants to know whether your ribs fall off the bone or not.
I think most meats, I like my ribs to have a similar texture to my steaks. I want a little bit of chew. I don't want them tough, but I want a little bit of chew, so they won't fall off the bone. In this country, the general favor among barbecue aficionados is no fall off the bone. But among the public really wants fall off the bone. So we're divided.
So
on
I
that,
prefer to
and-
chew my food. I don't like to slurp it up. You know, if I wanted a drink, I would have fucking had one.
There's a famous barbecue joint in Austin, Texas, that has a sign out front that says, "You need no teeth to eat my beef."
Nice. Awesome.
That's pretty cool.
Question from Kent. He wants to know, if you could only have one grill, what would it be?
Well, that's a loaded question in that, for example, right now, I have a Hasty Bake 357 that sells for about $4,000. I don't know what the exchange rate is now, but it's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money, whatever way you look at it. Yeah.
But I absolutely adore it. Absolutely adore it. Now, I could answer that, but I don't think that serves anybody, because that not many people can afford. I think, if we try to get something more affordable, I still think the Weber kettle is just about all round. And the Weber kettle with the slow and sear. The slow and sear fixes some of the problems of the Weber kettle. And I use mine a lot. It's just very convenient, especially if I'm cooking for two. You're not going to do a party for 10 people on a Weber kettle very easily. And it's cheap in this country. The stripped down model is $100. You can get the fancy one with the gas ignition for $300. And you can smoke on it with the slow and sear insert, which is another $100. You can smoke on it. You can sear like the dickens on it. It's a lot of fun. You want to see a quickie video?
Yeah.
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 Okay. Let me. I tell you what. Let's keep talking while I go look for the video.
Okay, no worries. So we mentioned the holiday season. Gift ideas. What would you recommend if you had to supply someone with some great gift ideas for?
Great
Christmas?
What ideas?
Gift ideas.
Gift ideas?
Mm-hmm.
Oh well.
Obviously, there's a beautiful book over here.
That would be nice. That'd be a nice gift. Oh, darn it. I'm not having finding that. I think, unless they have one already, a flank steak. I have a flank steak. That's what I'm looking for. A thermometer. There's no substitute for having a good thermometer. There's nothing that will improve your grilling faster than a good thermometer, instant read thermometer. It's nice to have an oven thermometer that, has a remote read and all that stuff. They're fun, but a instant read thermometer will get you through most situations.
No, you can't really go too wrong with a Thermopen, to be honest. I've had one for years, and they're solid thermometers, to be honest.
Okay. This is a technique that I learned in France. Let's see if I can share this screen here. Share screen. Yeah. No. Where is... Oh, it's not showing me.
Maybe resend the link down so you can open on another channel, Matt.
Oh, there it is. Okay, so I know what to do. I'm going to have to share this screen. Let's see how this works. Am I sharing? Okay, now I'm going to get you guys out of the way. Can you see a Weber kettle?
Yeah.
Sure can.
Okay. All right, that's an empty Weber kettle with some newspaper in the bottom. And I'm adding some twigs. Play. So I've got these are grapevines.
Okay.
I may just turn the sound off. So I just add these grapevine twigs to my Weber kettle and light it. And in just minutes, it goes up in flames like this.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
And it burns like this for about 5 minutes, and then it settles down to nothing but glowing embers. And I put a flank steak on there. You can't cook a very thick steak. And it cooks very quickly. I put the lid on for just a little bit. That's the thick end is on down here. The thin end is hanging off. You can see there's almost nothing left in the bowl, just a few glowing embers. This whole process takes about 10 minutes. And then that's what you've got when you're done. And you can see the char on the exterior. And, flank steaks are so rich and flavorful. You have to cut it across the grain. And when you're done, it's beautiful.
Oh, yeah. Look at
Isn't that wonderful? With
and
great
it's delicious.
That's a fun technique that I've been playing with. Okay, let's stop sharing. Okay.
Hey, you're a master of StreamYard already.
Super, super cool. Look at that. Sharing screens into impressive. You can do it better than I can, and I've been doing it a few months now.
Hey, how much longer do we go for?
We've got a couple more questions, and then we can open a chat up, and people can come in. Or if you've got other stuff to do, you can go and do that. That's
I'm cooking dinner tonight, and we usually sit down in about 30 minutes.
Okay.
And I need to do some. I'm doing this salmon takikomi gohan, salmon rice, and I need to set up the rice and other things.
Yeah, that's fine.
Let's power through the remaining questions then, and we will let you go. So, where were we, Ryan?
I think we should go with because we've pretty much covered a lot of it already just through conversation, which has been very good. A lot of people use your website. What is the most common question you get on AmazingRibs.com? What is the regular one come up all the time? What would you say was the...
It's really interesting. You just caused me to think back. There used to be a lot of questions about the stall. The stall is when, for example, you're doing a pork butt or a brisket, the temperature starts out and continues slowly to rise, and then it stops.
Yep.
And it freaks people out because company is arriving and it's not getting any warmer. And they know it's not done. And their spouse is in the kitchen going, well, the vegetables are all done. Where the hell's your goddamn meat? And it's a problem that newbies run into. And when we first launched the website, nobody knew for sure what caused the stall. It was generally believed that it was some sort of effect caused by melting fat or collagen or something like that. And I work with a scientist, a man named Greg Blonder, and his name is on the cover of the book, just below mine. He teaches at Boston University, and we set up a test, some experiments that he did, and he proved what now seems perfectly logical, but at the time when we wrote it up and we told people what caused the stall, especially on places like Facebook, and there's another site called the Barbecue Brethren, where people just call us idiots. But what happens is it's absolutely fascinating. As the meat heats up, water from the meat evaporates. Yep. And as it evaporates, it cools the meat. Just like when you're cutting the lawn, you sweat, the evaporating sweat cools you off. And if you're cooking low and slow, as the water evaporates, the hot air warms the meat at the same rate that the evaporating water cools the meat. So you reach stasis. You reach a point where it's heating and cooling at the same rate, so it can't go up in temperature. And then what happens is the surface eventually dries out. It forms jerky. That's your bark. Your bark is essentially a form of jerky. And once the surface dries out, then the temperature can rise again. And that is it in a nutshell. But it took a bit of research to figure this all out. And that used to be a common question. it isn't anymore. It sounds like we have taught people the cause of the stall, and they now
certainly
understand.
debunked that one, because that's certainly my understanding of it. So
That was a lot of fun debunking, because that was one of the great mysteries.
definitely.
Okay, so looking forward, what are your plans and goals for 2021? We sort of covered that but
get the hell out of 2020. That's my plan. Get 2020 behind me as far as and fast as possible. And get my vaccine. I'm very fortunate
on that.
I'm very fortunate. I work from home. This is my desk, and I have worked from home for years. So it really hasn't impacted me, other than the fact that I think I forgot how to drive. I haven't been out of the house since March, but I'm getting blisters on my ass. But we're rebuilding the website from the ground up. We used a platform called Drupal, and we're moving to WordPress, and that's a major project, and we should complete it in January. And we significantly improved navigation and finding things. The site has grown so large, there's over 4,000 pages. It's got hard to find things, and so we should be curing that problem with the migration to WordPress. A few months into the year, we hope to have our rubs and sauces come on the market. And then in August, we have a convention called the Meetup in Memphis. Memphis is a renowned barbecue center in the United States, in Tennessee. And we're staying at the Peabody Hotel, which is one of the grand old hotels in Memphis. And we have a conference. There's never been a conference about barbecue for consumers in this country. There's a trade association that holds very good conferences, but it's for the restaurants and the caterers. This is for backyard cooks like you and me. And it's in Memphis, and the last weekend in Memphis, August 27 through 29. And we've got a really fun slate of things to do and see and taste. And that has already sold out. But we're putting people on the wait list, because I'm sure between now and then there'll be cancellations. So if you want to come to the United States and come to Memphis and taste Memphis barbecue, and stay at a grand old hotel and hang out with me and some really good barbecue people. You guys may know who Malcolm Reed is.
Yeah, just a bit.
Malcolm will be there with us, and numerous great people. It should be a lot of fun. Go to AmazingRibs.com and we're at AmazingRibs.com/Memphis.
Okay, brilliant.
And take a look at our Pitmaster Club, AmazingRibs.com/Pitmaster, and look at the benefits we give to members. It's really cool. There's a lot of benefits to members. Among them, no advertising. We block all the ads from members. And there's free books, ebooks, free magazines, drawings every month for grills and smokers worth up to $2,000. A lot of cool stuff for the benefit of membership, and it helps keep us alive. This is a new era in the internet, folks. If you haven't noticed, a website, an independent website. We don't have a big corporate partner. We're not owned by a television network or a magazine network. Independent websites like us cannot survive on advertising. There's not enough money in it. And supply and demand controls pricing, and there's huge supply of advertising space on the internet. There's hundreds of what I call daddy blogs, guys who are lawyers and accountants in the daytime, and they come home and they cook on their grill and they write about it on their blog. And they compete with us for advertising. And you just can't make a living on advertising as an independent. So membership, we started our membership in 2005. In fact, in your country, there's a company called the Membership Academy, which teaches websites how to build a membership program. I belong to it. A lot of good ideas from them. But we were among the very first to go to a membership model. Now, 4,000 pages on the website are free. No strings attached. But the Pitmaster Club membership is sort of like a special room in the restaurant where only members can go in. And there's a lot of good stuff in there. Go AmazingRibs.com Pitmaster. Check out the things that we do for you. And you can take a 30-day free trial. And we have a number of members in Europe.
So just a quick one in the chat and about the stool. Darnell wants to know your quickest or your best way to overcome a stool the quickest. I mean, a few of the guys chimed in the chats with their different methods.
Yeah, I mean,
the Texas crutch, for example.
Right,
but
the Texas crutch is this.
What would be your sort of go-to to quickly address a stool?
Yeah, the Texas crutch is the simplest and the best method. Basically, you wrap the meat in something that water cannot penetrate. So if you take aluminum foil, or a lot of people use butcher paper, but you wrap the meat so that even though it's hot in there, the water is not evaporating and cooling the meat. And so it can blow past the stasis phase. Now, the problem with the Texas crutch is that the surface doesn't dry out.
Absolutely.
So you don't get that crunchy bark.
Yeah.
So you're at a trade-off. The Texas crutch also helps tenderize just a little bit. So it's a trade-off: speed and tenderness for bark, and a little more flavor. When the water evaporates, it concentrates the flavor of the meat. So you get a more concentrated flavor. So it's a trade-off. Another technique, it's not as effective, is to turn the temperature up. If you crank the temperature up, then you break through the state. The heat overcomes the evaporation and the cooling.
Mm-hmm.
Again, with you then have the other issues of it drying out too quickly if you go too hot. So it's a balancing act, isn't it? Very
well.
Much so.
I think those of us who love low and slow barbecue love low and slow, and you can't be in a hurry.
Low and slow, right. You can't hurry it. You just get up earlier and go, okay, well, I'll just leave it in the cool box for a couple of hours until the guests arrive.
That's right.
Yeah, definitely. So, last question from us then, and it's a question we ask all of our guests that come on the show. Top 3 favorite music albums or artists?
Wow.
Gives us an insight to the person.
Oh God,
we talk all about barbecue.
I hope I'm not such an old fuddy-duddy that somebody's going to scoff at me, but I think all of us have this experience of when you're young, you hear music that becomes part of your soul. Yeah. And no matter what comes after, it really can't displace. And I'm a child of the 60s. I went to college in 1967. And that was in a very tumultuous era, historically, both on our continent and your continent.
Mm-hmm.
So the music of that era is powerful part for me. I mean, I don't know if anybody out there remembers Grand Funk Railroad, Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin.
Yeah.
My wife and I are fans of musicals. I think, Oklahoma is one of the great musicals of all time that strikes at societal problems, equality issues. Showboat is another one. We listen to opera. I'm not knowledgeable, but I listen to classical music also. This week, the New York Times did a whole feature on Beethoven, and there's about 10 selections in there that are just transformative. I listen to country music occasionally. Unfortunately, the country music station here in Chicago keeps playing the same damn songs over and over. And, tequila is in every other one of them. But good country music has always interested me. And I spent a lot of time in the South when I was young. So my musical tastes are pretty broad. Some aspects of contemporary music I haven't been able to get cuddly with.
Fair enough. Absolutely.
Excellent.
Right, so there we go. Daddy Dutch says, awesome show, guys.
Thank you. Thank you, Daddy Dutch. Well, this was fun. You guys are fun to talk to, and a good, knowledgeable audience. Good questions.
It's been an awesome show. I
let's do it
feel
again
like I've
sometime.
come away more knowledgeable than before. So
We'll have
Thank
to do
you.
it again sometime, and
Oh,
I'll let you know how
that'd be
the
fantastic.
salmon takikomi turns out.
One
That
last
would be-
question from the chat. One
Oh.
last question from Darnell. He wanted to know how he could smoke his own seasonings at home.
You can. You need to put them in a pan, hopefully with shallow sides, so something like a sheet pan, because you want the smoke to get in there. And if you've got tall sides, it's harder for the smoke to get in. You want to spread it out on the bottom of the pan. You want to keep the temperature low so that there's a lot of smoke. Keep an eye to make sure it doesn't burn. You don't want burned spices and rubs.
Mhm.
Some of them, like paprika, you start with sweet peppers. Go to the grocery, buy a sweet bell pepper, cut it in half, pull out the seeds and the stem, throw it on your smoker, smoke it, and let it dehydrate. Let it start to shrink. Keep it at a very low temperature. Don't cook it. Don't make it dark brown. Let it dehydrate a bit. You can either dry it out completely or get it mostly dried out and then just leave it sit out until it's dried. Or if you have a dehydrator, you can dehydrate it. Or if your oven can be held at a very low temperature, finish the dehydration in your oven if you can't get your smoker at a low temperature. And then you grind it up in a coffee grinder or a mortar and pestle, and you have smoked paprika, and that's wonderful stuff. I've actually dehydrated tomatoes and made smoked tomato powder. That's a lot of fun. Onion powder, or you can go for the dried rubs and herbs and try to smoke them. It's usually better to start with the raw material like an onion or a pepper, and go from there. But it's not terribly hard. It doesn't carry a lot of flavor to the end product. It really is more about the smell.
Mm-hmm.
There you go.
Yeah. No, that's cool. That's really, really insightful. Thank you so much, Meathead. You have a wealth of knowledge. It's unbelievable. And with any luck, it'd be great to have you back on the show again.
I'd be honored.
It would be fantastic.
It was a lot of fun.
So I understand you got stuff to do. If you wouldn't mind hanging around for a little while, that's cool. If not, go and cook your
You gotta
salmon.
excuse me. I do have to go get dinner ready. You guys probably know what happens when you have a hungry wife on hand.
Oh yeah.
And
Oh,
we
yeah.
normally sit down for dinner at 5:30 local time, and it's 5:20 already, and I haven't started the meal yet. So
Fine.
Okay. Yeah.
No problem.
Brilliant. Thank
Again,
you so
thank
much.
you
again.
so much for coming on.
thank you
You've
for
been-
having me, and continue on without me, and we'll do it again sometime.
That'd be great. That really would be great. Thank you so much.
Take
Meathead.
care,
It's been a
folks.
pleasure having you on.
Thank you.
See you again soon.
Speak
Bye bye.
soon.
See ya.
Bye now. Wow.
What
What
a
an awesome
fantastic
show.
interview. Wow.
There we go.
What a guy.
Guarantee.
So much knowledge. So much knowledge.
Yeah. Absolutely. I feel like I come away with. I feel smarter.
I could just. I know there was like Charlie put Matt and Ryan are mesmerized. To be honest, I was just sitting there thinking, wow, he knows so much. Incredible stuff.
Right. I am going to hand over the reins to you, so the Barbecue Pub Club, for people to jump in and have a chat. And, I need to shoot off. I'm going to go and collect my wife. So, from me, thank you guys. I hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. And over to the Pub Club. I'll run the ad, and over to you, Ryan.
Thank you very much, Matt. Always great.
No problem.
See you soon.
See you later.